When she looked at Ifeoma, the mortal scream that tore from the girl's throat curdled her former friend's blood. For in place of her angelic features, Oledo now appeared as a haunting, hollowed-out spectre. All signs of life and vibrancy draining into the accursed talisman firmly clutched in Ifeoma's grip. Over the next few nightmarish minutes, Oledo's very essence, her humanity itself, was literally sucked out of her body in billowing plumes of energy. The once gorgeous young woman withered into a shriveled, desiccated husk, collapsing lifelessly to the floor in a mass of brittle skin and bones.
You are watching Stories with Precious, your best channel for the best of African-themed stories or folktales. Please subscribe, like, and share.
In a small city, there were two girls who had been very inseparable best friends since they were very young children. Their names were Oledo and Ifeoma. Oledo was stunningly beautiful with flawless skin, gorgeous features, and a brilliant smile that could light up any room. Everywhere she went, people couldn't help but notice and compliment her beauty. Boys and men shamelessly flirted with her, and girls gazed at her with envy and admiration. By contrast, Ifeoma was quite plain. She blended into crowds unnoticed and was constantly overshadowed by Oledo's radiant looks. Few people paid much attention to the unglamorous chubby girl walking beside her gorgeous friend. Yet, despite their strikingly different appearances, Oledo and Ifeoma adored each other's company. They had been next-door neighbors since birth and did everything together, attending the same schools, going on family vacations, even sharing secrets about their first crushes on boys. "You are my sister from another mother, Ifeoma," Oledo would always say affectionately. "What would I do without my best friend in the whole world by my side?" While Oledo was beautiful on the outside, her inner beauty was even more radiant. She was kind, generous, humble, and saw only the best in everyone around her, especially Ifeoma. Not once did Oledo flaunt or take pride in her incredible looks. To Oledo, the way Ifeoma made her laugh with her silly jokes until the boat doubled over in stitches was far more valuable than any superficial physical gifts. She loved how witty and intelligent Ifeoma was, able to discuss any topic from science to history to politics with dazzling insight. If Ifeoma's spirit was visible, it would be brighter than a million suns. Oledo thought to herself, "I'm the real lucky one to have such an amazing friend." For her part, Ifeoma tried to love Oledo with her whole heart and tried her absolute best never to feel jealous of her angelic beauty and popularity. After all, it wasn't Oledo's fault for being born so gorgeous and sought after by everyone. She was simply a good person blessed with incredible genes. At least, that's what Ifeoma attempted to convince herself on a daily basis. But the truth was, a growing knot of resentment smoldered deep inside her like an ember that simply would not extinguish. Watching her best friend constantly receive more attention, compliments, and admiring glances than she could ever dream of became a source of bitterness that eventually turned toxic. It started with small things, like making snacky comments under her breath whenever boys couldn't keep their eyes off Oledo during their lunch breaks at school. Then it progressed to Ifeoma being bothered when people thanked them for holding the door open, but only focusing their praise on Oledo's pretty face and not her own. "Why am I so invisible?" she'll wonder with an ever-deepening sadness. "Why does nobody ever notice me the way they do my friend?" With every sidelong glance of envy at her stunning best friend, The ember of resentment within Ifeoma continued smoldering until it turned into an inferno of outright hatred. A hatred even she herself didn't fully understand or realize she was capable of harboring. It all came to a head during their final year of secondary school when both girls were 18 years old. Oledo was voted as the head girl, receiving thunderous cheers and applause from everyone at the assembly. And not just because of her intellect and leadership skills, but because of how indescribably beautiful she looked accepting her badge and sash on stage. Ifeoma returned home in a rage, shattering every mirror and perfume bottle she could find while howling incurrent sounds of torment. She awoke the next morning, smoldering ashes of her items scattered around her bedroom floor, a terrifying epiphany crystallizing in her mind. No matter what I do or how smart I am, I'll never escape Oledo's shadow, she said through gritted teeth. Well, if I can't shine as brightly as her, I'll snuff her light out once and for all. From that point on, Ifeoma became a completely different person around her former friend. Where she had once laughed and made jokes for Oledo's delight, she now only glared with silent contempt and resentment. When Oledo tried asking what was wrong or suggested fun activities for them to do together, Ifeoma would blow her off with indifference or make up transparent excuses for why she was too busy. During their final weeks of school, Oledo's concerned parents begged Ifeoma's mother to find out what had caused the rift between her daughter and the girl she had once considered a second daughter herself. But Ifeoma refused to breathe a word of her twisted jealousy, only offering that she was growing apart from Oledo as they approached different paths in life after graduation. Deep down, Oledo was utterly crushed. She felt like she was not only losing her best friend in the world, but an actual family member. Try as she might, however, she couldn't pinpoint a single reason for Ifeoma's sudden cold hostility and abandonment. For the better part of a year, the sullen girl ran a gamut of emotions, from sadness to confusion to eventual acceptance that she had lost her dear friend forever. Oledo had no idea of the malicious path Ifeoma was secretly pursuing to extinguish her light once and for all. While the radiant girl planned to attend university in the hopes of becoming a doctor, Ifeoma initiated a series of clandestine meetings with a villainous man, popularly called Baba, who practiced the dark arts and nefarious witchcraft on the seedy outskirts of the city. At first, even the sinister Baba was taken aback that such an innocent-looking girl had sought his services to destroy her best friend out of hatred and jealousy. But the jaws of cash Ifeoma offered soon dashed any moral objections he harbored. You realize once this is done, you can never take it back, yes? Baba raps through a mouthful of rotted teeth, studying the twisted rage burning in Ifeoma's eyes. Attacking the physical form is one thing, but destroying her spirit entirely is a different beast. Ifeoma slapped another word of currency into the witch doctor's open palm defiantly. I don't care what it takes. The self-righteous, arrogant Oledo must be stopped before her beauty and arrogance kill me. Please use your most potent powers to snuff her out for good. Baba grinned wickedly, the speckles of saliva spraying from his lips, making Ifeoma finally doubt her actions for just a fleeting instant. But she quickly dismissed it. She was in too deep to turn back now. Her supposed destiny as the shining star that had once been promised to her must be fulfilled at all costs. Over the next few excruciating weeks, Baba instructed the bitter former best friend through complex supernatural rituals and incantations, each one bringing the malicious task to destroy Oledo closer to reality. The dark forces they were calling up gnawed a little more at Ifoma's conscience each time, but she accepted it as a mere inconvenience for her greater purpose. Finally, the ceremony to obliterate Oledo was prepared for a night with a full moon. Ifoma carried a venomous serum and charmed good luck figurine that Baba had imbued with tremendous metaphysical energies through arcane practices. Use any excuse tonight to get Oledo alone with you, the sinister witch doctor instructed. Then administer this serum into any food or drink she ingests. As soon as the last drop has been swallowed, her essence will be bound to this talisman. Ifoma cradled the metaphysical good luck figure in her trembling hands as Baba described how Oledo's very spirit, her light, her beauty, her very existence would drain into the charmed figurine. That fateful night of the full moon, Ifoma lured Oledo to her house under the pretense of having one last heart-to-heart talk to rekindle their fading friendship before heading separate ways after graduation. Oledo agreed enthusiastically, having no idea of the treacherous plot her former best friend had planned. As Oledo arrived, Ifoma feigned emotions, finally spilling over about how she could never compete with Oledo's incredible looks and attention from others. The beautiful girl immediately moved to console her supposed friend with a warm embrace. Ifoma, you know I love you for so much more than superficial things like beauty. Oledo soothed with tenderness in her voice. You've always been my shining star, even if you couldn't see it yourself. Ifoma fought back crocodile tears as she produced a covered plate. I made us some chocolate pie to eat one last time for old time's sake. She poured them each a glass of juice, dropping the vial of Baba's wicked serum into Oledo's cup when her back was turned. As they reminisced over fond childhood memories, Oledo gobbled up the pie and drained her punch. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But then, Oledo's sparkling face contorted with a look of sheer terror, staring wide-eyed at her hands. To her horror, her skin began losing its warm, radiant pigment, fading into a dull, pale, ghostly pallor. When she looked at Ifoma, the mortal scream that tore from the girl's throat curdled her former friend's blood. For in place of her angelic features, Oledo now appeared as a haunting, hollowed-out spectre, all signs of life and vibrancy draining into the accursed talisman firmly clutched in Ifoma's grip. Over the next few nightmarish minutes, Oledo's very essence, her humanity itself, was literally sucked out of her body in billowing plumes of energy. The once gorgeous young woman withered into a shriveled, desiccated husk, collapsing lifelessly to the floor in a mass of brittle skin and bones. When the deed was finally complete, only a gleaming soul crystal containing Adeswa's captured spirit hovered where she had fallen, pulsing with a faint light, desperate to be freed from its cursed prison. Ifoma scoops the crystal up victoriously, adrenaline and perverse elation coursing through her veins. She had done it. She was finally the radiant star with Oledo's light fully extinguished. As long as she possessed this talisman, her beauty would shine indefinitely, while that of her so-called best friend was forever trapped. Also, the deluded, power-hungry girl thought in her darkest moment of self-centered triumph. In the days after disposing of Oledo's soulless, mummified corpse out of sight, Ifeoma's own outer appearance did indeed undergo a shocking metamorphosis, her looks becoming absolutely stunning, radiating off her in waves that drew stunning stares and admiring gazes everywhere she strutted. For once in her life, Ifeoma basked in the attention and acclaim she had always enviously watched bestowed on Oledo. She ignored the pangs of guilt at achieving such status through malevolent means against her former friend. In her toxic state of self-obsession, she viewed herself as the lone star who had merely burnt out another to achieve her rightful place in the firmament. Yet, on the inside, Ifeoma's soul writhed in perpetual torment and emptiness. No amount of admiring looks or showering of compliments could fill the gaping void left by her destroyed friendship and humanity. Behind her cascading looks and perfectly symmetric features, Ifeoma began to see flashes of Oledo's haunting, soulless face from the night of her unholy transformation. Sleep became elusive, with night terrors forcing Ifeoma to relive the atrocity she committed in agonizing detail. Powerless to stop the waking nightmares, more and more, the envious, covetous girl felt like she was losing what little remained of her grip on reality and human decency. Matters only deteriorated further when strange, inexplicable events began unfolding around the conflicted beauty. At random moments, household objects would inexplicably shatter or burst into flames, as if an unseen poltergeist sought to punish Ifeoma. One evening, after a particular horrific night of terrors, where she witnessed her own gruesome shriveled death play out, Ifeoma awakened covered in terrible oozing boils. In a panic, she rushed to consult the vile Baba about what was happening. "I did exactly as you instructed," she hysterically insisted, wincing as the sores leaked pus through her dress. "I captured Oledo's essence fairly, yet still something pursues me from the other side. What have you done, witch?" Baba circled the cursed girl like a vulture, black eyes revealing neither pity nor remorse at the state of his latest failed dealing with fell forces. "The magic you sought was one of greatest darkness and performance," he intoned without empathy. "You have not only stolen your friend's life essence into that talisman prison, but trapped her vengeful spirit in eternal limbo as well." Ifeoma's eyes bulged in shock and disbelief. Her spirit? You mean Oledo is still... Baba threw his head back and crackled, sending chills down his former client's spine. "Of course, you foolish child. Did you really think we could extinguish one's eternal soul so easily without cosmic consequences? As long as a spirit remains unrestful, you shall live out your malediction of my craft, haunted until both your forms are utterly withered and unmade." Clutching the vibrant crystal that was once her best friend, Ifeoma collapsed to her knees as the horrible truth washed over her in icy waves. She had not just killed Oledo, she had committed the most grievous sin against her immortal self. Now, she would suffer the eternal spiritual torment as her price. Ifeoma sought any solution to undo the irreversible evil she had let grow within. But all priests, imams, and holy men she turned to immediately recognized her blasphemous pact, offering no solace or path to undo her profane damnation. Eventually, the misery became too much for the withered, haunted young woman. She fled the tormented nights of the city completely, retreating with her hellish crystal into the deepest stretches of the untamed jungles of the rainforests. There in that primal isolation, cursed to eternally relieve her sins amid the festering sores and wails of Oledo's tormented spirit, Ifeoma renounced her worldly obsession with beauty altogether. Only then did she realize the emptiness of such vanity before the gravity of her corruption and separation from the human soul. As her corporal form steadily wasted away, the wretched girl held fast to the shard of crystal, greedily clutched and never loosened her grip, lest Oledo's vengeful spirit claim her for the agonizing and eternal spirit realm that she herself had condemned them to. In the darkest jungles to this day, locals will warn others to avoid certain cursed thickets and fetid swamps where they claim unnatural lights and sounds can be detected dancing among the mangroves at night. Those brave or foolish enough to investigate the superstitious tales report bearing witness to the demented sight of two hideous apparitions locked in eternal violent embrace. One, a luminous yet tormented spirit, the other a decayed and mutilated ox, clawing with darkened talons to escape its assailant's fury. Elders revisiting such encounters will solemnly shake their heads and recount the tragic downfall of two friends. One consumed by jealousy and now doomed to haunt the bushlands forever. The other, a betrayed innocent, never allowed to escape her forced eternal prison.